Good morning and welcome to all of you here with us in the Commissioner's Auditorium this morning, and those of you who are out there in TV land, to all the citizens of Pitt County. I call our meeting to order, and we'll have our invocation by Mr. McLaughlin and our pledge by Commissioner Nunley. If you'll stand, please.
And you may do your roll call electronically if you wish.
Okay, let's do that right now. Thank you very much.
Isn't it one? Number one is yes, correct.
Shall we pray? Eternal God, we come and tell you, thank you. Thank you for this day. Thank you for our help and strength. Come into this meeting, have it to be the way that you would like it to be. Help us to make the decision that will be beneficial to the citizens of this county. These and all blessings in thy holy name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, let's vote, please. Okay, we have a presentation coming up. Prior to this, I would like, the commissioners already know this, but I'd like for the citizens to know that we are planning a workshop relative to this topic. We had sort of thought it was going to be later, but we thought we might as well get ahead of this. The commissioners have not been privy to this, except the introductory portion was brought before us a few months ago. And our first workshop is going to be Saturday morning, and then we'll have a follow-up workshop. And we're not sure, but it may end up being some public hearings throughout the county to get feedback from our citizens. And that's kind of how we do things when we go into a collaborative effort with the municipalities and the city and the counties, and when we're using taxpayers' money for anything. With that said, Mrs. Morphus, if you'll come forward, please. She's from the Creative Consulting Group that has been leading this group. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, Chair Ward and Commissioners. I am pleased to be with you this morning. We do have some printed materials that we'll hand out at the end of the presentation and leave with you, but they are a little bit more detailed than the PowerPoint handout that you were given. I'm Crystal Morphus. I'm CEO of Creative Economic Development Consulting. We're a small consulting firm headquartered in North Carolina, and we consult with economic development organizations across the Southeast. One of our areas of specialty is organizational development, and that's why we were engaged by a joint group of the county, the city of Greenville, and the Committee of 100 to support and facilitate a discussion on economic development organizational structure. For some of you, this is the first time that I've been before you, and I just want to give a little bit of a timeline. This process really started more than 15 months ago, and I'll talk about some of that leading information. Some of you were here at the September 10th meeting in which the fundraising firm provided their results, and I talked about organizational structure. I'll recap that just briefly, especially for those that were not part of that meeting. I think that would be helpful. And then some of you were part of a September 27 workshop in which I discussed in more detail various economic development organizational structures. After that, the county did appoint 2 representatives to a larger working committee, and that's what I'm here today to summarize for you is the discussion process and outcome of that working committee. So I just wanted to give you that history and walk us through that, and I'll be glad to, of course, answer questions as well. So why did we even start this process really to talk about organizational structure? The first is a desire to improve the economic development program. And I'll get to a slide later that shows the comprehensive economic development program Your current economic development organization focuses on industrial development, and in fact, that's their charter and mission. But today, economic development is much broader than industrial development and includes small business development, entrepreneurship, commercial and retail development, even in a term that we call today placemaking. So it's really important for us to think about that expansion of program of work, and that's been one of the drivers of this discussion about organizational structure. The second is the interest from the private sector, and I'll summarize the results from the consultant fundraising assessment study. But for the first time, you've actually asked, and the private sector has responded directly with their interest in being not only financially involved, but personally in a leadership way involved in economic development. And then third, interest from the allies. This is not new. The discussion between a collaborative effort in Pitt County has been ongoing for many, many years in different forms and iterations. And that's really another driving point, is there's a high level of interest from your allies and partners and a high level of collaboration. So those are the three key points that really drove this, this process and this discussion. At the September 10 presentation, again, for some of you that were here, the county, the city, the Committee of 100, and others came together to fund a private sector fundraising feasibility study. And this was to gauge interest in the private sector's involvement in economic development. And that organization, that team, if you will, rather, retained Convergent Nonprofit Solutions. And at that September meeting, the principal gave, these are a few of his slides. Some of you will remember seeing these slides. He talked about conducting roundtable discussions with more than 100 individuals, conducting interviews with leaders across the community. He talked about the central themes that came out during those engagements with citizens and leaders, and then the outcomes. Specifically, a 5-year draft plan with metrics, which you were submitted a copy of, and I'm sure new members have access to that as well. Plus also the point of a draft public-private partnership, and again, that's what led to the discussions of the working committee. This slide was very telling from their presentation about supporting a public-private partnership, and you see nearly 80% of people involved in their process, and again, that was over about 170 or so people involved in supporting a public-private partnership. And again, that answers part of the question of why we were even discussing a public-private partnership. Some of the most critical factors is that funding should be public, private, large, and small. It should be comprehensive and representative of the county, municipalities, small business, large business, allies, partners across Pitt County. And that the governance of this organization should again be comprehensive and representative of the county, municipalities, and a very wide range of business support, not just very large companies or large employers, but a wide range of business support. Their conclusions was that financial support is available and there from the private sector for economic development, and he gave a range of about a $2.5 to $3 million campaign, and that campaign could be concurrent with a transition process to a public-private partnership. So what this report told us is that the private sector is very interested in being a partner in economic development, so much so that there's indication that there would be about $2.5 million of private money in addition to the public money that's already invested in economic development. So this would expand not only your funds available for economic development, but also leadership support for economic development. As part of that September 10 presentation, I, before this council, talked about the different forms of economic development structures, from public entities and departments, through public-private, nonprofit economic development organizations to Chamber of Commerce models, and talked about those. I won't go into depth, but I'll be glad to answer questions for you. That was also the main point of the September 27 workshop with the commissioners, was to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of each one of the economic development models. And after that workshop, the commissioners appointed a economic development working committee, or asked for an economic development working committee. In the materials that I'll hand to you, and I think were sent to you in your board packet not in your board packet, Mr. Manager, maybe earlier were sent to them, is a full list of everyone that was on that working committee. I'll just point out that there were 2 representatives from the county on that committee, 2 from the city of Greenville, 2 from the Committee of 100, 2 also from the Pitt County Development Commission. You see there were 3 private sector representatives, the community college, the university, Vidant Healthcare. The municipalities were represented by 1 voting member, but then you see ex officio, and there's a full list of all of those ex officio members. In fact, I think that their numbers outweighed those of our voting members. But just to point out, Simpson, Farmville, Grimesland, Winterville, Ayden, Bethel were represented as well in those ex officio members in addition to the municipal member. And so I say this to point out that there was wide representation on this working committee of really all those allies and partners in private sector and public sector that the fundraising consultant recommended be a part of any public-private organization. And also, I think this was a really important point to the commissioners as they asked for this working committee that it be inclusive of people across Pitt County. So if you'll take some time, maybe after this meeting, and look at that full working committee list, you'll see everyone that was involved. We started meeting on November the 7th, and that first meeting, we talked about economic development models and potential models and structures and had good discussion on that. On December 5, we moved to a draft governance model of how it could look, and we debated that and talked in depth, had good discussion on it. At December 19 meeting, I'll give you some of the summary points. We talked more about bylaws and again about structure, and again on January the 14th. So to summarize each one of those meetings, the key points, on the November 7, our first key point really was a lot of discussion about cooperation, collaboration, and consensus. How could we bring together the economic development efforts of particularly the city, the county, and the Committee of 100 into a collaborative effort, particularly under that wide range of program areas I mentioned earlier. All municipalities would be involved. Organizational elements, we talked about staffing, strategies, the results that we could see from this program, how important communications, transparency are. And really, at the end of that meeting, I think the central topic was consensus again around collaboration and how important collaboration could be to a strong economic development model. December 5, we talked about, again, the governance structure, and we had increased from an earlier draft municipal representation. We talked about public leadership on an executive committee. We reviewed potential funding sources, both public and private, and we talked about potential staffing model. Obviously, if now the Development Commission's program of work is industrial development, and we're talking about a very wide program of work in support of municipalities and retail and commercial development, small business entrepreneurship, that's going to take a different staffing model than what you have today, and that was a key discussion point. The result of that December 5 meeting was for us to proceed on with a governance discussion at the December 19 meeting. Excuse me. At the December 19 meeting, we talked about ensuring the economic development programs and projects are not put on hold. We're all very aware that your economic development leader, Wanda Uhas, is retiring at the end of April, and we want to make sure that there is consistency in the program, that we don't have any gaps, if you will, for those projects and programs that are ongoing. There's a deep desire to make sure we protect the citizens of Pitt County and the taxpayer money, the public dollars that would flow into any public-private nonprofit organization. And at the end of that meeting, there was a unanimous vote to endorse the concept of the public-private partnership, the structure, the staff model, and the program. And I'll go into more detail on that endorsement in just a minute. At the January 14 meeting, the county withdrew support for proceeding at that time, and the city and municipalities asked us to proceed with scheduling presentations to them. So I'm glad that we're back to the county with a presentation. Let me go to that December 19 meeting and what was actually endorsed by the working committee. Again, there are voting members and non-voting members, and you can see that roster in the materials that I'll leave with you. But this is the endorsement. Endorsement area number 1 was they endorsed a collaborative economic development organization that represents Pitt County, municipalities, private sector, and economic development allied organizations. That was really important. Again, that was the first discussion in November 7 was collaboration. The second endorsement was a program of work. And you'll see that list, again, is much more expansive than industrial development, which is a charter of the Development Commission. And I think if you were to have a discussion with your economic development staff now, particularly Wanda Uhas, she will say this is one of the most important points of this process, that economic development is a much broader area than when the Development Commission was originally created. And this expanded program of work would allow the county to address all the facets of economic development. And with that, it needs additional resources and staff. So these are the areas that I've talked about, and that program of work, again, was part of that early November 7 discussion about overall strategies. The third area of endorsement was a governance model. And you'll see that proposed governance model, and I say subject to review. The draft bylaws that are in the packet that I'll send out with you have not been legally reviewed. They are still in draft and concept form. But this governance model allows Pitt County to have the greatest level of votes and control, because you would, by virtue of the program dollars you put in economic development, be the single largest contributor financially. The city of Greenville, municipalities would have seats, private sector would have seats, and then a whole host of ex officio non-voting members to include many of those allies that's important to have as part of your economic development team. And again, there's much more detail in the printed materials, but this governance model brings together really what the fundraisers talked about initially was that public-private collaborative type of organization. The next endorsement point was a staffing model. We put together a proposed staffing model that reflects that program of work. Again, I mentioned if the program of work is narrowly focused today and is going to be significantly expanded, the staffing model has to reflect that. And then the final point is that the organization will be funded by the county, the city of Greenville, municipalities, and the private sector. Again, that level of collaboration between public and private sector. This is a graphically represented, or graphic that represents the potential bylaws and the structure of the board. If you'll see, our focus I put is economic development. We had some discussions back in September and at our workshop about how eventually this model could include a Chamber of Commerce, a Visitors Bureau, and Uptown. It could be a very large umbrella organization. In fact, several people from Pitt County traveled to Spartanburg, South Carolina, to look at their large umbrella model, and it has several more areas of economic development, but we were focusing only on economic development during the working committee process. And you'll see here under sustaining members is the county and the city of Greenville. Those would be the two key public sector funders of the organization. Municipal members, if they chose to invest in the organization, would be in a rotation for one of those 4 seats. And I say if they choose, if municipal members chose not to financially contribute, they would still have their manager or representative in an ex officio non-voting seat. So if you're a small municipality and you do not financially contribute, you still have a seat at the table. That was very important in our discussion, that everyone have a seat at the table, whether or not you're a financial contributor. And then investors would be at a level based on their investment as well as top investors. And again, there's more detail in the bylaws, and I'll be glad to answer questions about this. The executive committee would be made up of officers, and those officers would, officers and others. The officers would be public and private representatives, and also an appointee from Pitt County, the city of Greenville, again, the 2 significant public investors, a municipal member from those 4 seats on the board, and then ex officio members. We did recommend the chair and vice chair from the private sector, only because oftentimes nonprofit economic development organizations have to advocate for policy change, regulatory process that could be in conflict with a public entity. So having those 2 as private sector would ensure that they could advocate on behalf of economic development, even if it means a policy change in a government. I'll be glad to answer more questions about that as well. This is an example staffing model. that would cover the program of work that we've talked about. Again, this is all conceptual, but in the committee, they wanted to get to details, and details are important. So we talked about all the different areas of work and how that could be staffed. And so the next steps for us would be working through a transition process, generally approving the concept and moving forward, but then also a transition process. So let me outline for you what would be the request if we moved forward. And I'll say that we're giving the same presentation next Monday to the city, to the Committee of 100, to PCDC, and others. And we are trying to find a date to give the same presentation to the municipalities as well. We haven't found that date yet. And we will present this same request to them as well. So 4 points. One is to accept the working committee's endorsement and materials. You have the summary materials sent to you. I'll hand them out in paper form as well, but just to accept the committee's work, if you will. The second is to approve a transition process that will eventually lead to standing up the organization. And here are the specific points. One, to reappoint the working committee and its representatives to oversee transition. And remember that working committee has representatives from public sector, private sector, and allied organizations, and it would make an ideal, if you will, transition organization. Under that, to recommend an interim director. Wanda Uhas is going to be retiring at the end of April. This transition process will take more than the next 2 months. If we started today, it would take more than the next 2 months. So appointing an interim director to help move through the transition process and stand up the organization would be important. That transition group, that transition board, would confirm the mission and vision statements of the organization. They would update the strategic plan for the organization, and they would oversee the fundraising campaign. More on that in a minute. They would recommend a budget for next fiscal year, and they would secure office space. So this transition board, this transition committee, if you will, would oversee that process of interim director, developing a budget, developing the strategic plan and the mission and vision. Also under that transition process is memorandums of understanding between local governments and the organization. So when counties have nonprofit economic development organizations, there's a service agreement, if you will. This is what the nonprofit's program of work is. This is how they're going to carry it out, the results they expect to see, and this is the funding appropriation that would come from a local government for that. So if you were to, at some point, approve this transition process, you're still not approving the organization. Those memorandums of understanding will have to come back to you for approval. And then we ask that you put a placeholder in the budget for the new organization with a budget request that will come from the transition board by the end of April. And that placeholder would probably be the same amount of funding that you have had for economic development in the past. Specific steps for the county would be to empower the working committee to vet and recommend an interim director beginning on April 1st that would allow a 1-month transition period with Wanda Uhas. So if this transition process is going to take place and this transition committee is going to oversee it, we suggest that they vet and then recommend to the county an interim director that would work with them and work with Wanda over the course of 1 month, again, to make sure there are no opportunities lost after her retirement and there's a continuation of projects and program. And that interim could actually start bringing together some of the city staff people that will be a part of this organization as well and blending those programs. And then finally, this is a specific step for the city, the county, and the Committee of 100. As funders of the fundraising feasibility study, we would suggest that they work together in moving forward the fundraising campaign. There is a window of opportunity to raise the money that was identified in the fundraising campaign, and we do need to get started on that if you wanted to move forward with an organization. The reason that that is important, one, it solidifies the private sector investment. It can start to work on that program development, and also eventually for future staffing, we'll need that commitment of private sector funding. So for example, if the county decided to move forward as a partner in the public-private partnership, these are the 4 things that we would suggest that you do as a step forward. So I'll close by saying that, and I started out by saying that this working committee's work started on November 7th, But really, this current effort to identify a way to work more collaboratively in Pitt County started about 15 months ago. But even before that, there have been several efforts in the past to find a way to work more cooperatively in Pitt County. But I believe there's a real key opportunity right now that has not presented itself before. One of those key opportunities is you have a commitment now from the private sector to both be involved and supportive financially of economic development. The second thing that's really important is that economic development has expanded far beyond industrial development, which is a charter of your current organization. And that expansion of program means that in order to meet that new economic development model, that wider program, you do need a different funding model, you need more funding, you need a different staffing model, and that expanded leadership involvement would be very helpful as well. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions from the Commission.
Okay. Thank you very much. And what we'll do is just start down there. If you have a question, if you'd like to ask it, we'll move along. If you don't have one, that's fine. Ann? Okay. Question? Okay.
Can you say anything more about the commitment from the private sector?
Yes. So that is, those commitments were gauged through interviews with private sector businesses. The next step would be to go back to them and solicit a multi-year pledge. That $2.5 million is based on those early indications. No pledges have been gathered yet. That would be the step of the actual fundraising campaign.
So any idea about the, I'm looking at the bylaws now, about the value of the gold, silver, bronze, and then this, the unknown amount of money for item E?
That has not been defined, those levels of investment. That would be a next step, and some good work for the Transition Committee to work on.
But am I right in reading this that we might not know how many people would be on this board?
So you would know the set number for those 3 investment levels as outlined, but top investors is yet to be unknown, yes.
So that would remain unknown.
Until the fundraising campaign was complete. Now, we've talked about whether that might be 2 or 3 or 4. That would be a very high level of investment, significant.
My concern is the municipalities in Pitt County. When one of the trainings that I went to during my first term had to do with developing a mission or a goal, as you would see as a county commissioner. And my goal is that no matter where a visitor may come into Pitt County, that the message that they see or the message that they view is that we are a welcoming county, we truly are the best. And that means that whichever is north, south, east, or west, it will show growth, it will show positive development that make the visitor to want to come back and live here or invest their monies here. And so if a municipality doesn't have the resources, and a lot of the small ones that I noticed in my travel around the county, they may not have the resources to do appropriate investing. So the serving municipality not putting the money on and not having a vote, I'm concerned about the input that you get from those people and the residents they represent and the residents of their ETJ area. Because right now ETJ is like a animal from Pluto. So what is this group going to do about that? That's a concern. I'm not asking that you find out now, but I'd like to hear more about it.
Sure. We had a lot of discussion through our meetings about municipal representation. In fact, it was probably one of the top 2 or 3 things that we talked about is municipal representation and how important it is. That's one reason why the municipal seats were expanded. Even if a municipality does not provide any funding to this organization, they'll have representation on that board. They'll have input into the program of work. And when we designed the staffing model, we designed a position specifically to address municipal strategies, which you don't have that now. You don't have any staff person designated to helping all municipalities achieve their economic development goals. So again, the concept is inclusiveness, and particularly of municipalities, but I do welcome some more discussion in that area. Thank you.
Just one thing relative to that. If I read this correctly, the municipality seats on the board, if they do not contribute, those seats are gone, those voting seats. And the outside, not the outside, but the businesses that are interested, and we're very interested in the private sector buying into development in Pitt County and are excited about it. But that continues to grow. I mean, that could be the majority in the end as far as the board votes are concerned. But just with that said, Tom?
I have basically nothing to say this time. I think it'd be more appropriate for us to go through our workshops. And then I don't want to say anything now that might taint somebody's opinion.
Okay, thank you. Glenn?
I mean, I've got some opinions on the municipal side. Aren't we the municipal representatives? I mean, I know we're not city council people, but we're not going to develop an industrial. We're not going to push industry into the middle of nowhere. It's got to be relative to a municipality so that there can be utilities and things like that. So we would be trying to source and diversify the locations of these places. I think that would be on us. And I also think we should move quickly because we're starting to get behind. And I will say this, having with my new position, being able to spend some time in the Triangle recently, geography is not our friend right now. So where everything is growing on the I-85 corridor, they're all an hour from each other. So as they expand, they just all grow together. People that work in Chapel Hill live in Chatham County. People that work in Raleigh live in Johnston County and all the way down to Hoke County. And so their expansion is exponential. Whereas if you look where we are, we're 2 hours from everything, and we're the economic generator for the region. However, every single county, with the exception of one that touches our borders, is shrinking. And a lot of that shrink is contributing to our growth, but the growth isn't people that are coming to start businesses and invest in industry. And so the reason I support this is because we need something that's fast and dynamic and that doesn't just do industrial work, which we've had a lot of success with, but as you laid out, we've got to be quick, and we've got to start. We've got to be the generator in the east because we need to support these other counties as well, and letting our prosperity move over to them so that we can grow as a region. Because otherwise, we're going to have a nice hospital and a nice university, but we're just economically going to slowly slip and just continue down that road because we can't support the region if we're not growing quickly. And that's in my opinion. I think some of the things that we're getting in the weeds on, like the municipalities, I understand their desire for wanting to have a seat, and I support that as well, but ultimately, we're their representatives. We represent a geographic region of the county that has municipalities in it. When I make decisions, I think about Ayden and Grifton, and I know, Mary, you think about Bethel, and we want to work together because we got to start looking at this as a body. And if Ayden prospers, Greenville prospers. If Greenville prospers, Bethel prospers. If we're growing together and working together. But as it stands right now, we're just very splintered. And so everyone's working on their own thing, but in some way they end up working against each other versus working with each other. But that's my opinion on it. That's why I think we need to make a move on something like this. And the sooner the better. I understand we have a workshop coming up, but every day we get further behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that's exactly the reason we tried to get ahead of this instead of putting it off during the budget and waiting till budget time. So the workshop is coming up, and I think we'll probably have 2 sessions with that. Thank you very much for your presentation this
Thank you. I
morning.
encourage you all to read the documents thoroughly. There were more than 30 people on the working committee that put in a lot of time and effort into that discussion. I encourage you to read the outcome of their work. Thank you.
Okay. Our next agenda item is the public addresses to the board. Do we have anyone signed up?
Yes, Madam Chairman, we have 2 people signed up. If Robert O'Neill will come forward and again give your name and address.
I do, while you're coming up, want to recognize Glorstein Brown. Glorstein, I don't know if you're behind the pillow and I can't see you, but I've been told you're here. Thank you very much for being here. She's the mayor of Bethel, one of our small towns. Okay, we're ready.
My name is Robert O'Neill. I live at 1900 Allen Road. The reason I'm here today is to let y'all know that I have a child with special needs. And I'm not blaming everything that I'm about to say today on what's going on. Don't know really how to put it, but anyway, sometimes in going to school, he would get to the door and sit down. He would not go outside. Sometimes he would come to me and go, play, get his shoes on, get his coat on, get him to the door. He'll sit down, say, come on, don't you want to go play? Yes. Well, let's go. No. We couldn't figure out what was going on. Last month, on Sunday, January 13th, it had rained. Took my son outside to play basketball. We were out there for a couple of minutes. All of a sudden, sounds like a thunderstorm coming up. He beelines to the house, runs in the house. Go back in there, so thought you wanted to play. Yes. Well, come on. No. Well, I contribute this to the landfill and the grinding or screening that's going on back there, because that was the noise that started when he took off to the house. I've sent emails to Scott Elliott. He has told me basically that nothing could be done because it's owned industrial. Then when I send an email stating I don't mind coming here talking or going on TV, he wants to meet with me and John Demery. I send him an email back stating that I think that the best thing to do is to run the machinery when the landfill is open, not on weekends and not on holidays. If the landfill's not open, then the machine don't run. It is ridiculous for this machine to run at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, maybe sometimes. I know it's run at 7 o'clock in the morning before, 8, 9 o'clock at night. There's a park there from Greenville that I have been to that the thing would go off and people go, a storm's coming, let's go. And they would take off and leave because it sounds like a thunderstorm coming. And then I get an email back, asking for the meetings. I get one meeting in the contract. In the contract on number 17, it states that transload is not to be a nuisance to adjacent property. Now, most of the property adjacent to the landfill is vacant, but my land is next to the land that's next to the landfill. So I'm asking you to please do something about this. I've sent emails to Greenville Planning and Zoning. They have no idea that this equipment is back there. Their answers to me is that it is industrial and it is a lime and fertilize operation that is covered under that. So when I send an email back to her stating, is this equipment allowed to be used back there?
Okay, if you'll wrap it up, that's fine.
I will not get a direct answer, yes or no. I would also like to say in closing that I wish you would have sent me another email since last Monday. Mr. Albritton never sent me an email back after I sent him one. And Ms. Perkins, I called your office twice and never got a response back. Thank you. Please do something.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Madam Chairman, I still extend the offer to Mr. O'Neill to sit down and meet with me and our solid waste and recycling director and see if we can come up to some type of a compromise on this.
Okay, if you'll get in touch with them and see if you can set a time to meet.
Madam Chair,
That's,
I have a question, Ms.
yes,
Scott.
sir.
what kind of compromise? I mean, does running at 8 and 9 o'clock at night, if he's correct, is that not prohibitable?
I mean, we need to sit down with Transload, who's the contractor that is on the site, to see what we might be able to work out between.
So what does not a nuisance part, that phrase mean?
I would defer to the county attorney on that.
Well, I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot right now, but I would like to know what that really means and how running late at night and very early in the morning doesn't translate into a nuisance issue.
Very well could. But again, we're willing to sit down and talk and have those conversations and try to resolve
And it's
it.
like I said, my willingness to talk can be done in emails. It's like, I want it to be, y'all put restrictions on sand mines, rock quarries, daycares, but because this private company is on county-owned property, they have no restrictions. I mean, that's my compromise.
Well,
Landfill hours.
Thank you. And we're offering, to get together, and I'm sure our attorney will be glad to be there, and maybe we can do some groundwork before the meeting's set up. Thank you very much.
I'll look for his email, because I don't.
Okay.
see it on there.
Next, we have Terry
He
Edwards.
said he called twice.
Okay, I can look for the sheet, thank you.
Good morning. It's good to see y'all here this morning. I'm coming on behalf of the Residents Council of McGregor Downs Health and Rehab. We have a special presentation that we want to present to you this morning. But first of all, I want to read you the letter from our Residents Council, which is an active body within our nursing home. We have 6 neighborhoods that make up our community, that make our home. It says, "Thank you for being a part of the change in our community by supporting us at McGregor Downs Health and Rehabilitation. Your dedication and support has helped to improve the quality of lives while living in a skilled nursing facility. You have inspired hope and created a better opportunity for tomorrow. You have made a huge difference by helping us stay connected to the community with new adventures, giving us the opportunity to be mentors to students and to be able to engage with youth and to have our spiritual needs met and to be able to be a part of an active community, a skilled nursing home residence. Your involvement in our facility is what makes this a home. Once again, thank you and all the people of Pitt County for everything you have done for us at McGregor Downs Health and Rehab." Part of that Residents Council is that they vote every month that they have to nominate themselves for a Volunteer of the Month. And for December, they nominated the people of Pitt County for Volunteer of the Month. And let me tell you why. I do a community service report every year, and this year for the 2018 Community Involvement Report, there were 42 churches involved. We have worked with over 35 different entities from East Carolina University. We're the home of the Adopt a Grandparent program. We also are involved with the students through ORDSYNC, through the Center for Leadership and Civic Engagement. Currently, there are 202 students that are in our portal. We are also involved with every high school in Pitt County through the Health Sciences Academy. This past summer, we mentored 75 students. We are also involved with many of the different businesses in town, whether it be entertainment, 29 local partners in the medical area that help provide things, and then just individual people that come in and want to be involved in our facility. I've been there for 28 years. Starting this month and leading the activity program. And I want to tell you that skilled nursing home residents, that it's their home. They don't sit there and they don't vegetate. And I love what I heard in the presentation before, because we want to be an active part of that community. We love it when the mayor comes in. We love it when we get to talk about things that affect us. We love it when we represent the veterans and when we have residents that are voting, that are getting their absentee ballots. So we embrace and embody from every area, from Robertsonville to Grimesland to all the different areas across the county that come in and that do things for us. We also participate in adventures outside of the facility. We are looking for a place to have a community project. So I welcome you in outlying counties. We've done Angel Cops, we've done the Center for Prevention of Family and Domestic Violence, we've done the ALF facilities, we've done all the foster children of Pitt County, we've done Ronald McDonald House, we've done Vidant. So we are looking for a project for 2019. I welcome any of you that have needs in your community. If it's the outlying areas to come, we do food projects for shelters, so we look at new adventures to take you on. So at this time, I would like to present this plaque to all of you as county commissioners and to Mr. Elliott as the county commissioner, and we would like to say thank you so much for making our home truly a home. We're not just a nursing home that's sitting and vegetating. We are a home that is active and that is engaged and that is a mentor in our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We needed a feel-good moment. Thank you. We really appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, that's all we have signed up, unless there's somebody in the audience who'd like to come forward.
Okay. All right. We have our tax collection report next.
Good morning, Commissioners. It's good to be with you today. This is the December 2018 tax collection report. The Pitt County fiscal year to date, as of December 31st, the combined collection rate for real and personal property was 83.73%. That rate compared to last year was 83.97. It was down 0.24% from the previous year. Pitt County Tax Administration continues to pursue all outstanding taxes using the necessary remedies available through the North Carolina general statutes, including bank attachments, escheat funds, wage garnishment, sheriff's levies, rent attachments, NC debt set-off program, and that's it. The NREM foreclosure we're not doing at this time.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Correct.
Okay, any questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve,
So
to
moved.
accept the report.
Second it.
Okay. You want to make the motion?
He made it.
Oh, you did? I didn't hear you. I'm sorry, Mr. Webb. Okey-doke, let's vote, please. Okey-doke, and you
Madam
are
Chair,
on again.
Okay. Madam Chair, I'd also like to bring your attention that we've received some phone calls in reference to a department income and expense survey. I'd just like a few minutes if I can
Sure.
address the reason why we did that. One of the things that we're trying to do in the Tax Administration Office is to work with taxpayers in allowing them to have input as far as what their net incomes are and also what their operational expenses are. And part of what we do is send out a survey during the time of reevaluation to give taxpayers that opportunity to provide that information to us. So we can use that to calculate cost models as far as the income approach to evaluating taxes. And so this is, my understanding is the first time Pitt County's done this, to give taxpayers the opportunity to provide that information. And we've had pretty good response through the tax office, but we also have had some phone calls, and I think the commissioners have also had some phone calls as well.
Okay.
So.
Thank you very much for doing that.
If I can add on to that, just the, Sam's going to come back and make a presentation later on regarding reevaluation, and the reevaluation project going on right now is effective January 1, 2020. The board does this every 4 years, but to kind of educate the public and to inform the board as to what the different components of reval are and give you a better understanding as to the different steps we'll be walking through in calendar year 2019 as we approach January 1 of 2020. We'll bring that back to you in a presentation format.
Okay, very good.
I think the next item to report is a report on unpaid taxes for the year 2018 that are lien on real property. The North Carolina General Statute 105-369A requires the tax collector to report to the Board of Commissioners annually on the first Monday in February the total amount of unpaid taxes for the current fiscal year that are liens on real property. In your packet, we gave you what they were whenever we submitted this report to the commissioners, but also this morning we given you, or have passed out, a revised amount, which that amount is in your new revised report.
So Sam, you've got, in the packet, you've got the unpaid property taxes for 2018 of about 3.8 million, which you passed out. It's been reduced down to about 3.2 million.
That's correct.
And that kind of is in line with what usually,
It's up a little bit this year.
Okay.
Part of the levy this year went up about $1.8 million. We've collected more money this year. We're up, as far as revenues for 2018, we're up $1.3 million, but also at the same token too, there
That
is
would make the whole
a little bit of a lag there. And these are figures as of last Thursday, January 31st. And so the collection rate is still lagging a little bit behind. We're just now starting our enforced collection remedies.
okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the report.
So move.
Second.
Okay, let's vote, please. Thank you very much. Okay, Brian, next, our monthly financial report.
Good morning, Board of Commissioners. You have in front of you the General Fund Financial Report ending December 31st. That puts us at the 6-month mark, or 50% of the year. Our revenues to date are at 57.9% collected, and our expenses are at 47.7%. Both percentages are slightly behind last year at this time. However, the gap between the two numbers is actually increased. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Any questions?
Motion to
Commissioners?
approve.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, let's vote, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Manager's report.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Just a few things to note. Next meeting dates, February 18th at 6 p.m. will be your last meeting in the month of February, and then you have one meeting in the month of March, and that will be on Monday, March the 11th at 9 a.m. And that is, the reason for one meeting is because of number B on the list, the NACO, which is the National Association of Counties Legislative Conference, will be being held March 2nd through 6th in Washington. And we have a rotation per your travel policy of which commissioners would be in the rotation schedule for this. I believe the clerk's office has reached out to the board on this. Item C is kind of a good news item. The Emergency Management Department has begun a peak time ambulance in what I'd call the southwest quadrant of the urban area, the Simpson, Eastern Pines area. There's a number of calls in which the city of Greenville comes out into the county for service, and they come out into the county many more times than we go back in under mutual aid. And what we're seeing so far on this model is it appears to be equaling out the number of calls going in and out. This is only on a trial basis through June 30th. The EMS Oversight Committee will be making a formal review of this and hopefully a recommendation to the board as to whether this should be continued. It's important that we kind of get a handle on this because when the city does come out in the county's jurisdiction, it is then fair revenue that we give up and the city takes and vice versa. So we need to try to get it 50-50 where we're going out, they're coming in on about an equal basis. Item D, just make the board aware, the county attorney and myself have been working with Sheriff Dance regarding the Fed bed contract we have with the U.S. Marshal Service or the federal government regarding the rate that we're compensated on a daily basis for those inmates who are federal prisoners. It's been a number of years, probably 8 or 10 years since we've renegotiated that rate, and Sheriff Dance is supportive of this and leading the effort to work with outside counsel to engage upon this, and this will mean more revenue for the budget, hopefully once the rate is negotiated and increased. We'll be bringing more information to you as those talks continue.
Scott, what is the current rate now?
I believe it's $78 per day is the current rate.
Okay.
Item E, you have in front of you a booklet from the NCCC Legislative Goals Conference. These are the adopted goals from the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners from the conference that we just had last month. And this culminates a long process of all 100 counties submitting goals, going through an entire committee structure of the association, all the way up to the final Legislative Goals Conference. And I don't know if any of the commissioners who attended the Legislative Goals Conference, I believe Commissioner Perkins-Williams and Commissioner Huggins were there, as well as our county attorney. If anybody had anything they wanted to
Anyone
say
have
about it.
anything they want to add?
Well, Mary was the voting delegate for that. But for me, it was a learning opportunity to attend it and to see other commissioners debate their issues for their citizens, and see how those issues compare to our issues here in Pitt County. So that really was a learning opportunity for me, and I enjoyed it.
Good.
I'd like to thank this board for the conferences. They placed it with me, and I'd like to thank Ann and Janice, who sat nearby, because every time there was a vote and a discussion on the floor, I sort of looked back to get a nod or a yay, because when you attend those, there should be a collaboration between those of us in the county who are there. And I have placed, is it at all of the commissioners' place? I have placed at your seats the results of how things went, and comments, and how the vote has, so you would know where we rank in the overall. Our goals may or may not have been selected, but at least you know how the vote came out, and that's what that is. And I like very much to respond to any question and let you know that I was representing you as your representative from Pitt County, and I appreciate that, and I did not take it lightly.
Okay, thank you. And I think the report, it was in our packet that went home.
It'll be in this week's packet.
It'll be in this week's packet.
Yes,
on
and just
Friday.
to clarify, what's in front of you is actually the agenda booklet for the conference itself.
Oh, okay.
But the goals list that Janet just mentioned will be in this week's weekly info packet. And in that, you've got the top 5 goals of the association. The number 1 goal deals with broadband, and then you have goals breaking out whether it's public safety, human services, and so forth, the different areas of functional areas.
And Mrs. Scott,
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to thank you and your staff for helping me with this report so that everyone could get it. It's a smaller effort, but you need to thank people who participate. And I want to thank you, Jana and Kimberly and Scott.
Sure, you're welcome.
Could I add that Mideast is having a broadband workshop this Thursday, and so I hope to hear some good news from that.
Good, thank you.
Item F, the Pitt County Soil and Water would announce that they're applying for an additional soil and water snagging application, grant application. This is as the result of Hurricane Florence disaster recovery dollars for stream repair and debris removal. And we are looking to target 2 streams on the northern end of the county, north of the river, the Otter Creek and the Canita Creek. The Otter Creek project will be at the cost of $73,920. Canita Creek will be at estimated $232,320. There is a match for this money, and it's $5,000 in kind, and that'll be through staff time. So once we find out if we receive the funding for this, we'll be on the northern end of the county clearing creeks, drainage ways.
Thank you.
We're hopeful that's going to happen. So.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you,
Okay.
thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to accept the items for consent.
So moved.
Second.
All right, let's vote, please.
Madam Chairman, we did have
excuse me.
one correction on the minutes that was pointed out to us, and the abstract for the Trillium item from our last meeting, I think we had added a Pitt County Schools attachment to it, and it should have been the Trillium report. Commissioner Nunley pointed that out to us, so but we've corrected that, but just for your information.
Okay, thank you. Let's vote, please. Okay, and Mr. Corley, if you'll come forward with our radio and paging enhancement project. And we're getting to the end, right?
That's right.
Yay.
Good morning, everyone. Glad to be back in front of you this morning. I am here to talk a little bit about our radio and paging system. There is a change order in front of you. Before I get to that, I do want to provide you a little history, especially since we have some new members on the board. So I'm going to throw some maps out in front of you. I've made them nice and large so Mary could see them. And I'll just give me 1 second to get those set up, and then I'll come right back up.
That's right.
We can see it.
See, now y'all know this is better. You know it's better. you know this is better.
They were on that little screen, you probably.
Yes, thank you so very much.
When did we start on this?
Which phase?
Yeah, I mean,
Second phase, 5 years.
this phase. Yeah, I figured he would.
All right, so I'm going to start to your left. So your left, we'll go in chronological order, kind of where we are and where we want to go with our radio and paging system. So for those of you that are new, back in 2012, we completed our first phase of our radio and paging project. That was a one-tower solution. So you'll see on that map there on the left, the Wintergreen site, which is down near Wintergreen School on County Home Road. That is the site where all the equipment was placed. So that was the solution that was first decided on by the commissioners at that time to install the equipment on that and go with a one-tower solution. That was at a cost of $3.9 million. You'll see there the blue is kind of the coverage the stronger coverage of the system. So the system was going to cover the entire county, but keep in mind that as the signal goes out from that spot, it does weaken. So once you get in buildings made of larger construction such as masonry and those types of things, sometimes the signal would not go through those structures. So that was kind of the first phase of this project. Then again in 2018 we basically completed the second phase of the project, which was a 5-tower solution for the radio system and a 6-tower solution for the paging system. You'll see it drastically improved coverage. We're working with Motorola. We used a 13 dB base, which is the type of construction that a building might be made of, to try to penetrate those buildings to get those signals within those buildings. The cost of that was $4.7 million. The radio side of that system, we've had no complaints from the end users. On the radio and paging side, both, all the guarantees from Motorola were met. I believe it was over 95% guarantee of coverage throughout the county. The paging system's been working well as well. You will see on that second map down toward the Simpson, Grimesland, and Clarks Neck area, there is a small area which is obviously the very lowest part of the county as the river flows, that there have been some issues reported from the end users, from the communities there about paging. There are some issues mainly within buildings. However, there are some issues out in the field. So this change order that we're requesting would actually address the issues that we're seeing in that area. That cost of that second phase was $4.7 million, and then that was also where we did our backup center in the Technology Enterprise Center building at a cost of $1.3 million. So this change order that's in front of you today is an addition of a 7th paging site. It is actually on a American Tower Corporation owned tower, which is where the other sites were as well, all on American Tower owned property. There will be equipment put on that, equipment on the ground, just like the other sites. Again, this is just for paging, so it's not quite as expansive as the radio and paging sites. So the building will be a little smaller, it'll be a cabinet. You'll see on this final map kind of what that does to the coverage. It fills that void that's there, and we feel that in this area, this will certainly take care of any issues that those folks down there are experiencing. So with that, we are asking for an additional $335,000 out of the project contingency. Initially, there was around over $800,000 that was put. That's why we put the contingency in there for this project, was for things like this. We have come in front of you one other time to ask for money for some enhancements to some of the actual fire station sites and EMS sites. So we feel that this will be the final piece of the puzzle for this. We will, after this project is completed, we will come forward again and report back and kind of have a final closeout of the project. We hope to have, if this is approved and we move forward, hopefully it'll be in operation by November, and final closeout at the start of next year. I do want to mention that we have Motorola representatives here this morning, as well as Alan as well from Emergency Management. So if there are any questions for them, they are here. So I'm just asking for authorization to move forward with this project and the change order number 4 for $335,000.
Tim, if I can add, even without this seventh paging site and this additional outlay of dollars, the contract for the radio and paging specifically, because that's what this deals with here this morning, exceeds, even with the minor issues we're having in the eastern part of the county, the coverage limits still exceed the contractual obligations of Motorola, correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
But we as staff are recommending, because the chiefs in Simpson, Grimesville, and Clarks Neck area have identified paging issues in that area, and like you said, because it is low-lying, we are recommending to implement this seventh site.
Tim, so that the general public will know, and our meetings are advertised, and I get to hear about them, paging affects what for the residents, this new piece here?
That is how the fire and EMS folks are notified of a call. It comes into their pager. You hear the tone, and then the whatever the call that has come in, that our 911 folks are basically notifying them that there's somewhere they need to respond.
Thank you, because they needed to know that. We said, what is this about money?
Yeah, and they could be at their home. It could be at night, or inside a school, or inside anywhere, and we need to make sure they get notified.
It deals with residential life.
Absolutely.
And when we started, you're looking at the first amount of coverage, which was very limited when you look at the outline areas. And
yeah, we've come a long way. It is a top-notch system. It really is.
Yes. Any other questions?
Madam Chair, because of the importance of this project, I move that we approve this change order.
Thank you.
I second that.
Okay. Let's vote, please.
Pleasure.
Okay, our next item is a joint resolution. Alice Keene and Ron Butler, you'll come forward, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. We are excited to be here with you this morning to talk a little bit about our Community Schools and Recreation Advisory Council. As many of you are aware, the Advisory Council was set up with community schools, was established back in 1978. We were unique in the country at that point in time that our community schools program was done in collaboration with our Board of Commissioners and our Pitt County Board of Education. Our Advisory Council first was guided by the North Carolina Community Schools legislation, which was passed in the state back in 1977. As the program has changed, so has the duties and responsibilities of our Advisory Council over the past 40 years. Initially, we were community schools, but a part of the original vision for the program was to help establish county recreation across Pitt County. And let me see if I can catch up here. Was to also establish countywide recreation. That was a key part of this original vision, and therefore in 1998, you, our County Board of Commissioners, voted to add recreation to the title, so it became Community Schools and Recreation to be more indicative of the services provided. That was also approved by our Board of Education. Both boards have been recognized as state and national models for many of the things that they have done over the years, but the first and probably one of the most important being the joint use of school facilities policy. We were recognized as a county and a Board of Education for that policy in 1998 by the Centers for Disease Control as a national model for providing physical activity spaces in a large rural county. We all take pride in that designation, as many others have happened over the years. As you can see from the very beginning, Community Schools and Recreation was about partnerships and collaboration, and we've heard a lot about that this morning. And Community Schools and Recreation work with several of our county departments very specifically: public health, planning, engineering, soil and water conservation, our building and grounds, right beside our Pitt County schools and their facility services department, along with community partners, and there's so many we can't state them all this morning, and also many dedicated volunteers. Pitt County is known throughout this country and very well known in the Southeast for our collaborative work. And I can tell you that those of us who have been a part of that over the years, and you're at the center of that, take great pride in being known for people in the county, departments in the county who are really willing to come together, put their resources on the table, take their hands back, and make decisions based on what's the best for the citizens in our county. Speaking in terms of collaborative partners, just a couple of examples. In the past 40 years, over $3.5 million, my friends, through grants have gone directly to classrooms, cafeterias, playgrounds in our school system to address the issues of overweight and obesity. Those have been both building facilities such as walking trails in our elementary schools, as well as interventions in our classroom that have increased education and knowledge and experience around nutrition and good physical activity. In addition to those dollars, over 332 projects have been done through what we call our Community Schools and Recreation Capital Outlay Program. That has taken over 800,000 county dollars, matched local school and community dollars at the rate of over 1.6 million, to come to a total of 2.5 million in, again, facility development and advancement to provide recreation facilities on our school campuses that can be used by the total school body and faculty during the school day, and then by the total community and after-school activities. As we look over at our district park, many of you, again, have been such a key part of that in development. Without that $1.6 million in grants and gifts, our park would not be what it is today. So again, it's that collaborative spirit. It is buildings and grounds, or soil and water conservation, our planning department coming out and doing certain projects that do not cost extra dollars, that we're where we are today. We are celebrating, we have been for the past year, 40 years of Community Schools and Recreation, and it's been so exciting to see the visions that our county commissioners and our Board of Education had back in 1978 be moved from visions into action, which translates into services and facilities for the citizens of our county. What we thought and believed could be possible, might be possible, many of those things have been done, but we still have a long ways to go. But this is your legacy. Hopefully each of you got a copy. I think it's Jana put it by your seat today. Please take just a few minutes to look at this, because every single one of you are part of that. So many thousands of people in our county are part of that. Look and see what you've done, and you may have even forgotten it. But it's a lot of progress and collaborative efforts has gone into what we have in Pitt County today. We need public interest, public input, and guidance as we go forward in our department. And as we said, a lot of changes have occurred over the years. I think We never forget for one day that we're spending the taxpayers, the citizens' dollars. So we like to have their input into how we move forward. I can tell you one of our proudest moments is that our district park is based on our countywide recreation and parks needs assessment master plan and also our district park master plan. So what you see there is what our citizens have said they wanted to see in the park. We come to you today with our resolution for restructuring the Community Schools and Recreation Advisory Council. We're recommending a 12-member board with 6 appointed by our Board of Commissioners and 6 appointed by our Board of Education. That resolution also covers the general operation of the council. In terms of general powers, the council is an advisory group in all areas regarding community schools and recreation, and you'll see those listed there. As we look at our district park, the advisory council will continue to adhere to the duties and responsibilities as were established in the ordinance to regulate the utilization of the Pitt County Recreation Complex. Of course, this was something we developed when the park opened back in 2008. Advisory council will be advocates for the program and the department, as well as promote programs and services and facilities. I think also they will help citizens understand the underlying value of the programs. They'll encourage involvement, but they'll also encourage their understanding of our needs for the future and the benefits that will be provided for the citizens of our county. One of the most exciting things for Ron and I is that it will call for an annual report both to you, our Board of Commissioners, and our Board of Education on an annual basis so that you can keep very up to date on what's happening in the progress of the program. In summary, this resolution will restructure the council. It will establish that structure and policy. And very importantly, will strengthen the relationship between the Board of Commissioners and the Board of Education. Together, you have developed a very unique program nationally, which we all need to take pride in. And your vision will continue, it has, and it will continue to touch the lives of the citizens in our county, especially as it relates to health and well-being. Well, I went back too far. We do bring to you our recommendation, which is to adopt the joint resolution of the Pitt County government and the Pitt County schools to restructure the Pitt County Community Schools and Recreation Advisory Council. We'd be happy to try and answer any questions that you have.
Yes, Tom.
Madam Chair, I would like to ask Alice and whoever put this together. Section 3, paragraph B, the second sentence, a quorum of 7 shall be required for the purpose of taking any official action. I agree that you should have a quorum of 7, but I think you ought to have some minimum amount of voters that are in order to change or to act. For instance, if you have a quorum of 7, a majority of that would be 4. That would be 1/3 of your board. Could literally pass anything. So just as we commissioners, we have a minimum number, regardless of whether we have a quorum or better than a quorum. We have to have 5 members vote for or against something to be able to take action. If you're going to have 12 members, I would suggest that you have something in there that would force your board to also have a majority of at least 7, equivalent of a quorum or more, in order to pass or fail anything. Just a suggestion.
I like that. Madam Attorney, does that
Yes, I can modify that language to accomplish that intent.
Okay, thank you. And before we take the vote, this collaboration between the school system and community recreation is kind of rare in the state of North Carolina and many other states, but covering a county as large as Pitt to have recreation programs for our youth and our older people, it's not like me. It's now, I mean, it's not just at the park. The school system, because we're connected to them, there are things going on every weekend during the summer at the different school settings so that our young people and older people can participate in events and things relative to recreation. So this, and I'm delighted that we're getting a little bit more formal governance and glad to see the collaboration is still there. So,
Madam Chairman,
yes, ma'am.
I served on the first community school program, and I'd like to honor making a recommendation that we accept this document with the changes that has been pointed out, if you so do me that honor.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, let's vote, please. Thank you for your presentation, both of you.
Thank you.
Okay. And next, Mr. Manager, we have the appointments to the PATS Advisory Board, and I think we have recommendations in our packet.
Yes, recommendation for Ms. Dacia Lane and Ms. Marshall Hall.
Motion to approve that, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, let's vote, please. And reappointments to the Board of Equalization and Review, and they have to kind of be special people, so.
Yes, recommendation to reappoint Mr. Jeremy King, Andy Piner, and Danny Smith, the Board of DNR.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, let's vote. And the appointment to the Animal Services Advisory Board.
Recommendation to appoint Ms. Carol Wilson to fill the at-large seat on the advisory board.
Okay. Is
So
there a
moved.
motion?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Let's vote, please. Okay, thank you very much, and we'll start down with Mr. Webb.
No comments.
Commissioner's comments. Mr. Colson?
None.
I'd like to say to District 2 residents that you should go online, pittcounty.government, and look at boards and commission so that we can be a part of the discussion, if not the decision. So please apply for boards and commissions so that we can have some District 2 representation on the Pitt County Board of Commissioners board's appointments. Thank you.
I wanted to thank Commissioner Perkins Williams for organizing a drainage tour north of the river and the county staff for driving us around. It was very interesting, and I would urge all of you to start looking at the ditches wherever you drive in this county. It's a very interesting situation.
Thank you very much.
They're breathing it.
Okay. Any comment? No, you said no.
I do want to ask a question first about the, going back to the goals, legislative goals. Are they on our website?
No.
I don't believe that the goals are on the county website. I believe that the priority goals are linked to the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners website, but we can put the county's goals and the NCACC goals on our website. I can work with the manager and public information office to see if we can make that happen. Scott, unless you have any reason not to.
No, I think that'd be great. Good idea.
Good idea, Ann.
I
Thank you.
would like to, so our citizens can see what our goals are here in
Would you like
Pitt
both?
County.
Would you like both the county?
Yes, county and state.
Yes, the county. And also, I want to comment about Alice talking about the resolution pardoning partnerships with the Board of Education in the conference that we just attended in the ethics class. Partnering with Board of Education was discussed because we are very fortunate here in Pitt County that we have a good relationship with our Board of Education, where that's not the case with some county commissioners. And so I just want to plug our Board of Education that we do, in addition to recreation and all other activities, we do get along with our Board of Education. We have not sued them. They have not sued us. So anyway, thank you. I just want to make that comment.
Thank you, Ann. Well, we've got some more attorneys on the board, so maybe we can, yes.
No comment.
I'll entertain a motion
Motion
to
to
adjourn.
adjourn, Madam Chair.
Second, let's vote, please, for adjournment. Thank you again.